Garry O'Connor's new book, The First Household Cavalry, 1943–44, tells the story of the Second World War's Italian campaign through the words of some of those who were there. Here, recorded at an event marking the book's launch at Hyde Park Barracks, Derek Jacobi reads from Herbert du Plessis' account of the aftermath of heavy German shelling in the Italian town of Pelena in Abruzzo.
At Pelena, you could not move by day without risking a shelling from above. At about 10 o'clock one morning, word came from the blown bridge that the crossing had been shelled. Murray Smith told me to take a stretcher party down to the river. We were just three. Myself, the party NCO, who carried a rolled-up Red Cross flag and wore Red Cross armbands, and my soldier servant, Trooper Freeman. We heard the whistle and crump of mortar bombs, and we began to bend at the waist and then to creep on our knees. Eventually, we were creeping in the ditch alongside the road because shrapnel was flying. There were two men in the water. One lay still, and the other was moving his limbs, lying on his back. The two bodies were half submerged. Our orders were simple: to get those casualties back to the ambulance. But the mortar fire was lethal. The corporal and I consulted each other more by eye contact than by word of mouth. At length, I said, "We wait for a lull." He was silent for a moment, and then he said, "There's a lull now." We stood up and went forward down into the water. The corporal held his Red Cross flag straight up over his head. The two bodies lay some yards apart. I recognized Trooper Musham first, and there was no doubt he was dead. His face was the color of the grey-green rocks he was lying on. The corporal turned his whole attention to Trooper Hislop, the next casualty. He had been the driver of my armoured car. Now the corners of his mouth were drawn right back to his ears, his strong teeth bared and clenched to stifle the grunts of extreme pain. We knew that our chances of survival were exactly 50-50. Either Jerry would respect our Red Cross flag and let us in, or he would ignore it, and we were done for. But on this occasion it seemed that the Germans were being perfect gentlemen. I knelt down in the water and held the stretcher steady against the current. The two stretcher men lifted Hislop and placed him on the stretcher. The riverbed was slippery and uneven. The corporal led the way, and I gave a hand to the rear of the stretcher. When we reached the shore, I let them go on to the bend in the road where the ambulance was waiting out of sight. Then an idea came to me that I might be able to haul Musham out of the water by myself. He was a very big, heavy man, but I felt sure I could haul him out by the shoulders. I went back and knelt down under his shoulder to lift and haul. But the most unexpected thing then happened. The noise which came from his body was like broken crockery in a sack. He must have taken the full blast of a mortar bomb and been terribly cut up inside. I had the horrible feeling that if I pulled hard enough, he might come apart. The whistle and crump of a bomb came from just down the river. This was Jerry saying that he'd given us enough time. I didn't need further persuasion. With one bound, as they say, or perhaps two or three, I was out of there. Back at squadron headquarters, I went to report to Tony and Valerian, who were bursting for news. There were two casualties only, I said, Hislop and Musham. Musham was dead. We got Hislop into the ambulance. What did you do with Musham? We left him there, in the water. Tony's face darkened. He took a few steps here and there across the room. We can't have that. Leaving a body there in the sun? I was appalled. I slunk away miserable. I was icy cold and wanted to be sick. I began to shake. After a while, I regained control and went back to squadron headquarters. Tony was on the field telephone to headquarters, and his face had recovered his sardonic good humour. He was looking at me not unkindly, and I knew that this was a signal of forgiveness. "We'll recover Musham after dark," he said. It took me a long time to forget the sight of Hislop's teeth grinding in agony, and the sound of Musham's shoulders on my chest making those broken noises when I lifted. In fact, I haven't forgotten.